And it says we are live. Let me see. This video link is private. Uh-oh. Give me 1 second. Why does it say it's private?
You need to change your thing to public, the YouTube link.
Oh, give me one. Oh, I see what it is. Give me 1 second. I was doing.
And it says we are live.
Let me see. This video link is private.
They'll be live there. I can see. I opened my YouTube. Okay, I have to.
So we are live. Give me 1 second as I tech check. Apologies, everyone. I am pulling out the YouTube studio. And really excited to have you all here. This is Monica Kang from InnovatorsBox. As you see, you know, it's Monday. Give me a little space. I am working out our tech part. And we are excited to be here. Okay, we are live indeed. Thank you very much. So thank you all for joining us live. This is Monica Kang from InnovatorsBox. I have Jeani in Raleigh and then Shilpi in New Jersey and New York. And I'm super excited to have this conversation because it was Mother's Day yesterday, so happy Mother's Day to both of you. But it's also two things in particular that you both occupy very much, which is Mental Health Awareness Month and Asian American Pacific Islanders. So welcome to this creativity show. How are you both?
Thank you. We're full.
Good. It's not a manic Monday. No, don't worry. It's not manic Monday. It's Mental Health Monday. Let's define a new Monday for us, right? But yeah. So yes, I had a great Mother's Day. It went by too fast. Too bad it's not every day.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, morning was a little hard. I had to dig deeper and, you know, get in the flow back. I mean, to be able to work through the day. And yeah, it's Mental Health Month. So, it's okay. You have your day. You have to be who you are.
That's why I said, let's not make it a manic Monday. This next like 30 minutes will be super nice to just chill with each other. Yeah. So we can take away the manic and just be mentally well. Yeah. I was trying to think of another cool. I'm not like Monica. I'm not as creative, so I can't think of
Mindful Mondays. Mindful Mondays.
Mindful Mondays.
Mindful. That's it. Mindful, because we're talking about mindfulness. See?
Yeah.
See, well, this is I'm in a manic mode. Thanks for having us.
Yay! Thank you, Emily.
This is all about well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's fun to laugh, smile.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to smile. That's my first tip. Smile, even if you don't.
Yeah. So Jeannie's already stepping in because one of the questions that I wanted to ask both of you is actually why, in fact, you do what you do and what inspires you. Because in a way, frankly, I know you said right now, smile, make space, and, you know, be mindful. But to be honest, from what I also know from both of you, it's a lot. And I would assume there's a lot of layers that we would want to untangle. And so actually, Jeannie, first, if I could share with you, like, what first even inspired you to want to look into mental health and well-being and even care about it?
Yeah, very loaded question. So I'll give you the short version since we have only 30 minutes now. It was part of my journey too. I did not start, and I tell a lot of young students when they're trying to figure out their life in the beginning, post-college, that I started off with a different career. Actually, somewhat similar to what we're doing today. I was a journalist, but I think somewhere along the way, I practiced, Shilpi, you'll like this, mindfulness, unbeknownst to me, where I'm like thinking about my life, trying to be intentional and realizing I wasn't quite happy when I left my job. So let me rephrase. I loved my job, but when I left it, I felt this isolated and this void, like, wait, what else do I have? I didn't want my work to be my life. And it's a very demanding career. So I think what happened was I decided to shift priorities and then ask in my early 20s, what am I passionate about? Like, I even asked then, what's my why? Why am I doing this? And when I couldn't think of a reason except, I wanted to be famous. I mean, you know, things like be the #1 anchor in the world. That's the Asian, you know, trying to be overachiever. And then wanting to make my parents proud, but I wasn't doing anything because I want to, or I believe in this. So I shifted careers and went to business school, did the Asian American thing, and did business school. No, I'm kidding. I went to business schools because I thought that was the logical choice, but I disliked business school. It was not, I got through it somehow, raising kids and realizing I can't do this also. I did not have my passion. So to answer Monica's question, I thought to myself, what am I passionate about? Like, what drives me? What gets me excited? And in my early 30s, so I'm not going to say how old I am now, but I'm older than my 30s. I just felt like I was too young to not like what I was doing. And I do see that. And that's part of why I'm passionate about helping the young people today. They're already burned out. So sometimes I ask them as simple as, what's your passion? And I had to ask that question of myself in my early 30s, raising kids and mental health, mainly because I'm Asian. I really wanted to explore that and help other Asian American youth, students, families experience that or understand that. And number one, address the stigma, because that is why I went through this roller coaster of, let me do business, let me do, and then I was like, wait a second, who cares? What do I really want to do? What am I good at? Also, think about what you're good at. And then here I am now in my 40s, and I'm super excited to really, and I will be honest, I refuel, because of course, Shilpi knows it's a tough field, right? And we're also giving our time. We also have to focus on taking care of ourselves, or we're useless to our clients. I just kind of delve in going, wait, why do I get excited about what I'm doing? And that's actually a big part of my self-care, focusing on my passion. So that's why I'm here today. And being Asian American, and month of May is super important to intersect both worlds, right? Mental health and Asian Pacific Heritage Month.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeani, for sharing that. And I'm sure, I know you've already did a plug-in a few times. And Shilpi, I'm sure you're smiling because there's probably a lot of synergy. Please tell me your story a little bit.
Yeah, no, I really like when Jeani said, like, focus on the why. And that's like my core area when I, talk to anybody who's like figuring their way out. Well, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Whether it's students, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's innovators, you have to find your why. And I have a similar trajectory. I did my business administration in finance with a specialization in finance, and started my career with corporate finance and transformation, like essentially, Six Sigma, Lean, etc. And somehow in the corporate world, I felt a void. I was never happy in my job. I just felt that something was missing, something that kind of satisfied and spoke to my soul. And I kept on asking that question to me, what is my passion? And I mean, as Asians, you really have a linear trajectory in life, right? I mean, you can either be a doctor or an engineer, or you do an MBA, and you have to be there on the top. And I went through that, and my parents gave me no other choice. I mean, these are the three professions, choose what you want to do. But that's not where my heart was. And as I went through my career, I just felt that I'm just not geared for this. And on top of that, I felt that there was a serious lack of emotional intelligence in the corporate world, right? I mean, we are engineers, we are financial analysts, we are finance managers. When it comes to SEL, social emotional learning skills, I felt that there was nothing out there. I had to really, really work through my own SEL to be really successful. And when I became a mother, that's when I realized that I have to bring in the intersection of SEL into the academic world earlier on. And as I started working with my kids, I decided to bring into to the larger community through mindfulness, through mental health awareness. And that technically has been my journey so far with Fablefy.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And what I hope all of you are sharing. And Emily, shout out to you. Thank you for sharing your comment on our comments. Emily was mentioning, also relating, Jeani, to your comments about how, she has also had to transition from, being in similar, left a career in journalism to become a teacher. And so Emily, shout out to you and sharing that comment and, letting us know. And, it's funny how journey works similar for me. I would have never thought about the importance of InnovatorsBox and the work of creativity if I haven't gone through the challenges that I was going through of, being depressed in the job I loved in nuclear security, and exploring that, which gets me to the question of, so many other things you've already hinted, how identity influences even beyond mental health, but just how identity influences what it means to be Asian American. And like, I know Asian American is an umbrella statement. Many of us actually have a different story, and what that means in how we think and how we grow it. But before that, because I know you also a little bit more personally, I thought to make it a fair game for all our other guests who's joining us virtually so that they can personally relate before we dive a little bit more deeper into being vulnerable, that they get to know our personal selves. So I'm going to pull out Spark cards. You'll each get to choose. So Shilpi, if I can go to you first again, what's a color and tell me a number that you would like to pick?
I'll probably take a yellow.
Okay.
And I'll pick the number 3.
3. Okay. So the question is, oh, this is a good one. How do you define mentorship? What experience has shaped that definition?
Oh, wow. How do you define mentorship? What experience has shaped that definition? And that's an interesting one. To me, mentorship is the ability to guide a person effectively in helping them define their why. I mean, it comes back to passion, because the number one thing a mentor needs to do is really delve into the soul of the mentee and help him figure out where their passions lie. I mean, I worked with SCORE. I don't know if you're familiar with SCORE. They help with small businesses, and I have mentored quite a few people. And people come to me, entrepreneurs come to me with ideas, and they have this random thing in their head, and they are like, okay, I want to go ahead with this. And when you ask them as to why do you want to do this, the answer is often not from the soul. And it's okay if it's not from the soul. It may take a number of iterations to really get to what you want to do in life, and it need not be a linear path. Some of us know at the get-go what we want to do, and for some of us it may take time till the 40s or our 50s to figure out what we want to do. And it's okay, we all bloom differently. And to me, mentors, as a mentor, you really need to give that space to your mentee to figure out why they are doing what they are doing. So did I answer both of them, both the parts, right?
Yes, you did.
Can I say something along the lines of that?
Please.
I love your definition. And I was going to also add that, so this is interesting to me. People think of mentorship also as somebody who has to be older. I not necessarily disagree with that. Of course, that's because you want to look at someone who can inspire you. But I'm also receiving mentorship in a different way with peers. And so I was thinking innovatively, Monica would like that, just innovatively looking at mentorship also in a new way, where it could be your fellow peers mentoring you in subject matter things like Shilpi with mindfulness and children that I can learn from. Otherwise, I feel like we also as mentors stop learning. And I'm trying to constantly, because we need to get refueled to be that inspiration to the mentee, like you said. So I just had to add that, saying some of my current mentors are my peers, very close in age, but I respect them and where they're at. And some of them have been doing what I've been doing, but much longer, even though we're the same age. Because remember, my journey took me roundabout. I had to add that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting what you say, because as a mentor, you never need to stop learning. That's a key to all of our growth. And often, I've seen mentors getting in that high space where they think, they learn, they're, the end all and be all of everything, and they stop learning. So thank you for sharing that perspective here.
And that ties beautifully to the conversation we want to dive deeper into, which is, mental wellness, mental health, just taking a different lens on that, and also just talking about Asian American identity along with it to celebrate both of those aspects and the work that both of you do. So to take that a little bit into perspective, tell me a little bit more. I know both of you also share your personal journey, but even in the industry, I go through this even for myself. There are certain things of like, oh, that's not what actually creativity is. Or like people have misconceptions and like it bothers you a lot. I know, Jeani, we talk about soft skills and what that means for you. Could you share a little bit more in general, like what are misconceptions maybe people have about mental wellness, whether in corporations or in family, that maybe we need to rethink about that?
Yeah. So how much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. It's even mental health, that word I define, and I say people think of mental health and still think of mental illness. I'm not talking mental illness. Yes, that does exist, and that's a big part of our field. But when I'm talking about mental health and mental health symptoms and conditions and challenges, it is something we all deal with every one of us, anywhere, and not just workplace, which I like to talk about, but that's the stigma right there from that word. Like you start bringing up mental health and people are like, oh, like you see it already. They're like, yeah, I did want to talk about mental health. And I'll just be trying to face that stigma and trying to break through that wall. I will use that word constantly. It's easier because we're in the field, but I also do it purposely. So there's a less shock value, especially among Asian Americans, because we know our culture. Shilpi just touched on it. And I was like, I got to be number one, and it's still ingrained in me. I am a mom and I try to fight it every day, but it's a journey. And part of that, I want to break through the stigma of we are not perfect. There's no such thing, and understanding that saying mental health, like, yeah, I'm struggling, simple things. I'm stressed. I want to normalize it. I mean, that's the basic word. It's a very, word that we use a lot in our field, but just making you feel normal. And if I can do that by just giving you a definition of mental health being simply what it sounds like, the health of your mind or your emotional, psychological, social well-being, isn't that something that we all deal with? Right? And I said, how many of us have dealt with a mental health challenge in our life? We're all supposed to raise our hands. And most of the people that I see, or corporations and people that I speak to, they're not coming to me with like a mental illness. They're talking about simple and complex things that deal with our mental health that basically we need to I want to say daily issues. Very simple stuff, but people get complicated with that. So I talk about the definition, and that's one thing I always break down.
And I think immediately, one thing when I think about mental health, it's like, well, we know so much about physical health, but mental health seems so hard because it's like intangible. It's like, ooh, do I actually know I'm mentally healthier right now? Which I'm sure you both have thoughts and have sources on it, but the gut instinct, and that's the same thing I know even in creativity. And so I'm thinking, I know Shilpi, you probably come across this all the time. So mindfulness, like, how does that work? Like, do I really need to do it? And I think it's been inspiring to hear stories of how now we're seeing more how when youth develops it earlier on, how it makes a transformative difference. And I know that's something that you care about, but tell us a little bit more. What's something that, society needs to rethink about mindfulness and the work that you are in?
So first of all, I really like when you spoke about emotional. I was reminded of emotional aid. There's a famous TED talk on emotional aid when you were talking about physical health and mental health. And to me, mindfulness is like an emotional aid for you, for your mind. And when you build in the pauses in your life, you're just giving yourself a space to unwind and kind of unravel your thoughts and really face what is in front of you. The most common myths that I have around mindfulness that I face on a day-to-day basis is that one, it's a religious tradition and it stems from religion, and that's something that comes to me every single day. And no, mindfulness is not a religious tradition. It may have its underpinnings in a spiritual practice in Buddhism, but technically it's a highly secular practice, and there is nothing, it's more spiritual rather than religious. The other thing that people think about mindfulness is that they have to meditate and they have to sit for like hours to actually be a mindful person. And to which I say, no, you can practice mindfulness every single moment of your life. I mean, there are four aspects to mindful living: the openness, presence, non-judgment, and compassion. And those are the four things that you can practice anywhere, anytime. Even when I'm here, if I'm being present in this entire conversation, if I'm being open about this conversation, if I'm being non-judgmental and compassionate towards you, I can send you loving, kind thoughts right now through the Zoom call, and to everybody out there. And that to me is mindfulness. You can be mindful even while practicing, even while doing your dishes, even while cooking. You can be mindful even while making your bed, because essentially mindfulness is just stopping yourself right there, just taking 3 deep breaths and just pausing in the moment and just being kind to yourself. So to me, those are the two myths about mindfulness.
Well, I was going to say, and I'll be honest here, years ago, I was that corporate person. and said, I don't have time for mindfulness. You get that, don't you, Shilpi? I get that all the time. Who has time to breathe for what they think is mindfulness? So of course I'm such a huge advocate now, because I want to tell people out there watching that actually you're already practicing mindfulness. It's exactly what Shilpi said. I know you are when you're washing dishes and things that you're being intentional about. But yes, I'll be the first to tell you that I was that typical corporate-y person who was like, I'm too busy. What do you mean mindfulness? And I need it more, meaning those who are busier, leaders, we need it more because there was so much more responsibility. So sometimes I say, oh, no, you need mindfulness more, in my very nice way. So I had to add that.
To add to that, is it right, for instance, for me to just even noticing that I'm not, even whether it's like, cleaning my dishes or, getting ready for my meeting, if I'm noticing like, oh, I'm noticing that my fingers are hurting, or that, I'm feeling a gentle breeze, like all of these small details, me noticing and being in an observant mindset, that's part of the act, right? And at least I've noticed that I'm calming down as I'm thinking about it, because I'm just focusing on being fully where I am. And I love that acknowledgement, Jeani. Thank you for adding that, which brings to another conversation of, to add to all of this bias and misconception, let's add the blanket of Asian American blanket, which is a whole other aspect of it. And Emily has kindly already raised a great question, which I would like to bring it to it, which is, how do we break the quote, quote, tiger mom pattern for our kids? It's so hard. And I would envision both of you have some thoughts. Maybe Shilpi, we can start with you on, what's an advice that you have in, how to be more mindful and thoughtful in parenting, where, especially in Asian American culture.
Yeah, so thankfully, I have somehow managed to break free from the tiger mom pattern, and I think I sort of significantly give credit to a book I read by Dan Siegel, and it's called The Whole Parenting, and I think. And we all talking about raising whole children these days, right? And to raise whole children, you have to be whole parents. And one of the things that Dan Siegel talks about in his book is that you are exactly your parents' parents. So you carry on the same patterns that you observe in your parents when you were children, and you kind of repeat it when you become parents. And I did that to my older child. When she was younger, I had the same linear thought process in my head. She had to be good in math, she had to be good in science, she had to be top of her class. And I think I burnt her out at a very young age. So now because as a practitioner of mindfulness, thankfully for mindfulness, I do observe my patterns. I do reflect on what I'm doing, and I'm able to let go a lot more, and trying to get rid of the things that I did not appreciate in my parents. And the fact is that we all felt pressured from our parents when they had these, mountain-sized expectations from us. And I'm trying to be a whole parent, and I'm trying to resolve my own issues, that I have to be a better person and a compassionate parent. And now we have conversations about emotions, which we never have in our Asian communities. I ask them, end of the day, how are you feeling? How was your day? And if my son cries, and again, that comes from the Asian culture, right? Sons are not supposed to cry. I allow him to cry. I give him hugs, and as I allow him to cook, and I allow him to play with dolls. So I kind of try to break the stereotype that comes with, and a lot of baggage that comes with being an Asian parent. And I would recommend that book to pretty much everyone who's probably watching this show. So yeah, I'm of a tiger mom.
I was going to try to look around my office and go, I have that book. I love that book. Tiger Mom. Oh boy, it's a loaded thing. And I like being authentic too in my own struggles. Yes, I struggle with it every day. I have a daughter and 3 boys, and there was when they were younger, when I was still in early part of my parenting journey. By the way, to everybody, it is a journey though, because it does take some time to figure out your relationship to the tiger parenting. I do recall my mom being like that. And now I see her, by the way, she's like the most, she spoils my kids. So I don't even recognize her. So I'm thinking, oh, will I be like, gosh, no, she's like, why are you being so mean to your kids? I'm like, what? So that's a side note. She's totally changed. But I was going to say my daily struggle is, you're right, the emotional connection. That is what we lacked as kids, or in my whole household. I couldn't share with my kids, hey, I'm stressed, or, or I don't think I can do this. You can't say that. And I definitely want to allow my kids to say they're having a hard time or it's too much. And I think I've gotten a lot better, but you're right, Shilpi, it took years of mindfulness to go, what do you mean you got a 90? No, I'm kidding. I'd be like, why is it at 100? I will admit I asked those questions, but the difference I think with me, and I love my mom, so I'm not saying anything about her, but I'm more emotionally aware and trying to understand my own struggles to be like, wait a second, this isn't about me. It's about my child, raising a whole child that has to bring all of that. And I will say my boys, they know how to make Korean rice better than my daughter. I think I did too much of that. I'm like, yo, you go cook right now. You do this. Oh, and daughter, you look pretty. No, I'm kidding. I don't do that. But I made sure that they knew how to make rice. But that's part of what I wanted to teach them. And yes, they do cry. And sometimes I'll be like, why? You're crying a lot. But I won't say anything. I'll let them be. And that is what I want to say. I want our kids to feel. So many kids struggle even now. I'm sure you work with families that don't want to feel, because it's easier not to feel anxious, right? But I want to say to groom them to be healthier, emotionally whole, you have to be able to feel those emotions. And that's why I think our generation struggles a little bit. I mean, we have to admit we're product of our parents, right? So it takes work. I do practice mindfulness for that very reason. The tiger mom thing. Just had to share that.
And to add to that, I think what I heard was just remembering that it's because cultures are so powerful and influential in shaping who we are, that sometimes it could feel very confusing. I think one thing that I don't know if non-Asian Americans understand this, but it's just because sometimes we talk about it doesn't mean that we don't appreciate it. I think that's the thing that it's hard for people to see. And Emily's also saying appreciation. Yes, Emily, I'm glad to hear that you're seeing that this is helpful. And she also asked for the book. So Shilpi, I'm going to ask you later confirmation on where to get the book. And so I want to add that layer, because I think what's so humanizing to have this conversation with the three of us and then others online together is that it's so hard to have this objectively with an Asian American perspective lens, because even for me, I was born in the States. I grew up in Korea. My parents, of course, are Korean American, but my Korean American story is a little different from just every other Korean Americans who are here, or even if they have a similar journey, because there's also aspects, just because I'm Korean American doesn't mean I have the exact same Korean American, probably similar for both of you. So there's that cultural element, there's that Asian, what that means on the umbrella element, and then on top of that, what that society norm also means. And so I think because of all those layers, as an individual, what I heard from each of you sharing is that there is an individual struggle of trying to figure out what that means for oneself as a person, what that identity means in the family as a mother, and then as a partner or as a family member. And then third, what that means in society, which, can I be honest, it's a lot. So I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts in thinking about, honestly, like, what's been your secret sauce in navigating that? Because like, you're two people that I hugely respect in how not only do you navigate, but use that knowledge and resource to help empower others so that they find their journey. Jeani, yes, please.
Yeah. I was going to say, and I do really mean it when I say it's like it's a journey, but I call it like a circular process. There's no beginning and end. That would be great especially when I work with students or teenagers that are like, I can't talk to my parents. And I want to say, well, even in your 40s, you may struggle because there's a cultural difference. And I still have that in my 40s. So I think when I say it's a circular process, there'll be times you'll be, you'll be where you're supposed to be, and then you struggle again. So that's why I say circular. But I want to say, this is very cliche, taking the best of both worlds, but it took me a long time to accept that. There are things that I will admit I do appreciate about the way I grew up. I would not have said that 20 years ago, but I have to admit that now, because I'll be honest, why would I deny who I am today? I like who I am today, and I hope most people are trying to like who they are today. So saying that I completely dislike the way my parents raised me is me saying I don't like myself, and I don't want to do that. So I will say the struggle was there, definitely. To this day, even when my mom calls, I'm like, oh, she's calling. Do I look good? I mean, it's still like that, you know? I seriously, I'm like, oh, she's going to FaceTime me. I better look right. Or she's going to say
Mom
something.
always still comments on me every time I talk with her.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll be like, she'll be like, what's wrong with your hair? Either way, it's still my mom. But I want to say who I am today, I have to give credit to my parents. They did raise me, and I out of love, the love that they knew as a South Korean immigrants, right? That's what they knew. I will obviously parent differently, but I have to keep that identity in mind. So that's what I do, to take the best of both worlds. I can take it or leave it on some of them. But, you know, I just share with Shilpi and you, Monica, I still struggle every day. It's a journey.
And that doesn't mean that it's forgotten. It's just building on that and appreciating both aspects. Shilpi, yes, want to hear from your thoughts too.
So I really like when Jeani said it's a circular process. You keep on improving and you keep on going, you keep on revisiting, you keep on reflecting. But to me, I mean, I grew up in India. I came to this country only about maybe 12 years back. So I really didn't have any education here. Most of my education is back home, and but a lot of my work life is, 12 years of my work life and, navigating the societies here. So I mean, what really worked with me, and which took me a lot of time to realize, is that be authentic to your identity. Whoever you are, that's you are. I mean, you can't shove off that part of your identity. And I'm really grateful for my Indian roots. It teaches me a lot of things. And as much as there are aspects of my parenting I would have liked to change, because maybe I would have found my calling earlier, I just accept it as a part of my journey, I mean, like, remember we had this discussion and I asked you, what would you tell your 16-year-old self? And your answer was, everything happens for a reason. I just think that to myself every single day. Had I not been through that parenting, I wouldn't have really gone on this journey of, discovering myself and finding myself. So to me, everything is for a reason. And I can always go back and reflect on what I can change in that journey, or in my parenting, to be a different kind of a parent, or, advise other parents on those things. And there are certain strong underpinnings in our culture. We are a really cohesive culture. We stand by each other. We don't leave our parents. I'm sorry. I mean, with no evil thoughts in my head. We keep our parents together with us. We take care of them. I call my mom every day. I just want to make sure she's okay in these times, in COVID times. I'm sure a lot of my friends do that. Yeah. And our parents are there. I mean, anything goes wrong with us, we know we have their back. And to me, that's a strong, resilient structure that we have around us, right? I mean, it makes us more resilient as people, because we know no matter what, our family has our back. And I love that about our culture, and I appreciate that. And when I go out to the world, that's authenticity I bring with me. I am there for you. And that, I mean, that's the spirit that I carry. Even when I go out, I tell people, yes, I'm there for you. And to me, that's the way you navigate as an Asian American, or an immigrant Asian. I'm an immigrant. I'm a first generation immigrant. So my answer probably is a little different from yours.
Jeani, you're muted.
Yes. I know, I just unmuted. I hate when I do that. I was going to say, no, I think your perspective seems to be very similar. And you said first generation. Yes. So to identify myself, I would identify as second generation. But you said something that triggered me in a good way, where you having each other's back. That is right. We do have a very, it can be, some people will say, oh, it's not individualistic enough. It's too collectivistic. But then we do have a community sense that I will say probably strengthened me growing up. I have a great quote that I was thinking that I wanted to share. So C.S. Lewis, you know him, Chronicles of Narnia, the book. He has a great quote that I always use in reference to our journey, Asian American identity journey, which is, you can't go back and change. You can't go back to the beginning. Okay. Sorry. Let me go. I was going to mess it up. I knew it. I always mess it up. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. So that's my journey. I can't go back and change everything that my mom said and did. And it was sometimes terrifying, maybe even, and very discouraging, and just like you can't change your journey. Well, we can definitely start where we are now and change our ending. And that's what I'm trying to do as a parent every day. you know, working hard at it, the tiger mom thing. Yes, I do like the tiger mom concept because it helps give me an accountability check. Am I being a tiger mom? Scale of 1 to 10, and my kids will say 9. Normally they give me a 9, but it's okay. Then I'll be like, oh, how can I become an 8? They're like, well, you don't know. Just stop. They'll be like, can you just stop making us do homework? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, be reasonable. But yeah, can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Let's share that.
Something that we can all relate to right now, right? I think everyone probably who's tuning in, they'll be laughing out loud with us to understand. So I want to dig a little bit deeper on this because, you know, I absolutely agree on both of you that part of, regardless actually of whatever your ethnicity and background is, you know, whether it's Asian American, African American, whatever that, something American, or, you know, or not American, whoever, what country you're watching this from. It's part of understanding how to embrace our identity, being mindful, going back to what both Jeani and Shilpi said, those are all skill sets. But I think those skill sets, because they're so connected to who we are and knowing who we are as a person, it's not possible to bring that best potential of what it means to be mindful. If I don't love who I am and I don't appreciate my identity, how would I actually learn how to be mindful or take care of my mental health? Which I heard was some of the things that I'm hearing from both of you that is really critical. And as parents, I know that's an additional thing. But for those, let's say, who's not parents, there's like, okay, that's great. I'll think about that for my mom and dad. But what it means for me. So think about those innovators out there. A question that comes to mind is that, you know, I know with COVID-19, a lot of innovators who happen to be Asian American have an additional struggle. First, I know often when I go do innovation work, I know I'm one of the few Asians in the room. Which I would assume is kind of a similar story for a lot of other innovators who happen to be Asian American. They're often one of the few. And now this is making it even harder. Sometimes they'll have to probably vocalize. Sometimes they'll have to think about how do they bring their values and whether they are doing that as an individual, a parent, or, you know, or as a child right now who's like, you know, in school. I think there's some lessons to learn. And I would love to hear from both of you. Maybe Jeani, from your lens first, and hearing about maybe on 2 different aspects. For I know both being a mom of a child who's in college and going into college, maybe like some of the college students who happens to be an innovator, a college student, and Asian American who's stressed out about the current situation. What advice do you have for them to share?
First of all, and you know how I don't like saying soft skills, and we've discussed this, but I know that's the way it's marketed, but it's really, well, what Seth Godin says, real skills, but it's really essential skills. And the soft skills is or the essential skills are what students come to talk to me a lot about, actually, in interviews, and also with how they approach their parents. So what I would say is I would take that off the table. You can call it soft skills when you're talking to somebody else because that's what they're marketed as. But in your own lens, I need you to look at them as essential and or solution focused, finding solution. You know, I love that word, finding solutions to, which is all about, you know, those silver linings out there of when, number one, I ask is, when are you feeling most confident? You know, what do you love most about your strengths, or what are you most good at? Those are the questions I always ask students so they can think this way. So for instance, when they struggle talking to their parents, oh, by the way, I want to tell my mom that I don't want to be in medicine. You know, we've had that. I would like to explore psychology. Now, this is a real life case. And I thought, psychology, that's kind of medicine. They're like, not according to my parents. I was like, okay, this is what you do. So my scenario is, you don't go in going, Mom, Dad, I don't want to do medicine anymore. That is not, I don't want to say wrong, not the best approach. Right then they get defensive and they're like, what are you talking about? You have to go, Mom, Dad, I discovered that I am the #1 psychology student at blah, blah, blah university. And the professor, you know, you can make it up. The professor told me that I have a skill to be the #1 psychologist. And so I started looking into it and realized, you know what, I could be an excellent, you know, in the field of psychology or psychiatry, Mom, Dad. And I know it's not medicine, but I will have higher education. And I will still have to go on to graduate school, all this stuff, but I can be a top psychologist. So I tell them, focus on the ending you want. Start your conversation with what you want to get out of it, which is you want your mom and dad to help you understand why you want to be a psychologist or in psychology. And then #2, go in with your strengths. lead, and maybe you're not the number one psychology student, but they don't know that. They don't need to necessarily know that. As long as they see an A, just let's be real.
They will know
but
later.
You start with that. They will, right? But the whole point is you got them thinking, did he just say best? Oh, did he say he could be number one in the, all right, let me think about this. So what I'm trying to say is you have to speak their language. What's the language? And yes, this is a role play thing that I do with a lot of students. Let's practice. I'm your mom, and I will play a very scary mom. I do it really well. And then I let the students talk to me, and I will stop them as we go along. But that is my thing. So essential skills, take hard skills, soft skills, take out. Essential skills, what do I want? We don't even ask that as Asian Americans. That's not in our culture. We were not supposed to say to mom and dad what we wanted. We were just supposed to be, oh, what you wanted. No, let's change that thought process. This is where American culture could be helpful, saying you need to be able to say what you want. Your parents also need to see that. And when they hear that in the way I told you to say, it's effective. So that's just my two cents. That's how I do it with students and innovators. So think innovatively, focus on your strengths.
I love that. Because what I really heard is the power of word choice and intention that makes a difference. I mean, specifically saying that, I don't want to do it versus I discover that that's so much more of an action. And I agree that, when you start with like, I don't, or I didn't, like, it's kind of reversal. Like, what do you mean you didn't? But like the word discover and explore, I love that. And Shilpi, I'm curious to add on that. I know with the work you do, not only do you work with children, but you actually work with hence a lot of parents. And I would like to specifically ask, what advice you have to share for working parents? Because right now, wow, with everything on top of COVID-19, I would say working parents are with additional stress and duty, and them finding mindfulness not only for themselves, but also sharing that with their children is extra important, but also hard and on top of Asian American culture. So what's a piece of advice that you have to share with our working parents who happen to be Asian American and innovators?
So just taking off from what Jeani said, how as Asian Americans, we want to be number one in everything. So we want to be number one parents. We want to be number one at work. we want our kids to be number one in their education, their remote learning process as well. And I probably went through that struggle in the initial part. Like, it's been 60 days of shutdown for us, right? So in the initial days when the homework started coming in, I was like, what bullshit is this? Without really having the compassion for the teachers and the schools that, it's a new normal for them. They have never really done remote learning at this kind of a scale. And I wanted I started looking out for other resources online, right? Is there anything I can do this better? Can I make this more, meaningful for my child? And to me, I had to take out time from my work to, investigate those kind of websites to find the right material for my children to work on. And there I was beating down myself as a parent and beating myself as an entrepreneur, because I was neither able to be here nor being able to be there. So the number one advice I would give to parents, and not just Asian American, all parents. I know Jewish parents are always on top of things. I know Italian parents are on top of things. I would tell them, hold it back. This is a new normal. Your children are navigating this with as much stress as you are. And, there was a quote I shared on Twitter today that, I woke up in the morning and I was feeling a sense of deja vu and, oh my God, Monday here again. And I had to, how am I going to find the discipline to go through the day? And now imagine you're a 7-year-old, and that's the age of my son. So imagine you're a 7-year-old, and if you as an adult with all your cognitive mind developed, all your rational, your prefrontal cortex always working, if your limbic system is going on in an overdrive, like your limbic system is where your emotions are sitting, your stress, your fear, and everything is sitting, your 7-year-old cognitive mind hasn't even fully developed. So keep that perspective in your head that your children are still growing, their minds are still growing, and let it go. Stop being the number one parent, stop being the number one person at work. Give yourself space. This is new for you. Take the time to navigate this process. It's like, when I came as an immigrant, I used to be so overwhelmed. I had to take that 2-year period. 2 years is what it took. 2 to 3 years is what it took to realize that, no, I'm not going back home and this is my new normal. So when I took that time for something that was a new normal for me, can I give that space to myself and my children yet again? So yeah, so that's the advice that I would give to all Asian American parents and then to all the parents out there.
I love that. And sorry,
Thank you
because
for
we
that
are still
advice.
Asians, I'm gonna add still a joke. Maybe we will just change them number one to not number one homework and mom, but just number one being patient. Number one, who's gonna go to bed earlier? Who's gonna get the most sleep today? Change the competition if you have to compete, but
Shift the
make it fun.
competition, right? Yeah, I like that one. Yes, competitors. Yeah, that's
It's part
great.
of our DNA.
That's why we practice mindfulness. You know, I love what you said. You really did hit us, and I saw Monica's reaction about a 7-year-old, your child's 7-year-old mind going through this online learning that we never. And so I think, and we know that anxiety, I like to say, is contagious. So imagine us as parents. Of course, our kids are immediately going to wake up feeling that same anxiety and stress because we woke up that way and we're just spreading it. And I know that's what happens when I'm like that. So I try to keep, that's a way of, my kids actually hold me accountable. They won't say anything, but they're there because they're reactors of you, right? But I love
Two
that.
quick stories to add to that, and Shilpi, appreciate you sharing that, and Jeani adding to it, because right now I'm living alone, and so reading these stories online, talking to even my parents back in Korea or my family is a reminder. But I had a friend who has a newborn, and he posted a picture about, I'm trying to work here, and like my son keeps crawling over the desk, and like I can't work. And then he posted the second picture, but like maybe I'm supposed to get the hint. Maybe he's coming here and not playing there because I'm here. Like, duh, like I should have figured that out. And I should have then took that as a positive sign that he wants to come here because I'm hanging out here. He wants to hang out with me while I'm working. Like I shouldn't see that as a barrier to my work. And another friend added that, to going back to your 7-year-old, that right now, whether 30, 40, 50, whatever age we're coming from, we only see from the lens of what we've experienced. And I think that's sometimes the reason why it feels hard to be created. It feels hard to be mindful or know how to figure out anxiety because we're just the same from our lens. But I think it's so beautiful to be reminded that everyone's lens is different. And so just because we're on a group call, you won't know what's happening to that other person or what other lens of pressures that's coming from, whether it's the cultural lens, the family lens, or that mindfulness lens or work lens. And so just being in respect and compassion to that is so important. So as we wrap up, oh my gosh, I hope you're having fun. This has been so fruitful. I've learned a lot.
Having fun.
And I'm so glad because I'm certainly going to rewatch this. Oh, sorry, Shilpi.
No, I said I'm having fun. It's been like a great conversation, just taking it off each other. It's so enlightening to just speak to fellow Asian Americans and feel that, you're so interconnected through culture, even if these are little countries, there's such strong underpinnings in the culture. It's so amazing.
And it's funny, for a fun fact for those who are tuning in live, they have never met before. We just met. I was connecting the two. And that's the part of the intention of the structure, because we're just having a real organic conversation. I did share some themes that I would like to cover, but just with all of you, I think often when I come across Asian American related conversations or mental health conversations, I find that it's sometimes too structured, or it's like only talking about the pain points. But I'm like, well, it's so much more nuanced than that. We got to celebrate about the things that we love. Like, hey, if we're pressured by all the number ones, can we change the goals? If we feel pressured by, that culture nuance, could we talk about how we celebrate that as a collective and work together as a collective? And I think it's so important that to acknowledge that it takes time, Jeani, as both of you said. So as we wrap up, I know there's so much more. And Jeani, I know you said, like, how much time do we have? Like, I wish we had more time, but to honor everyone else, as we wrap up, I'd love to hear both from you, maybe a final piece of advice, maybe Jeani from you, knowing also for your customers, you work across different generations, but you actually also have many generations immediately in your home. So you're kind of balancing both at home and in the workplace and then helping other people. So thinking of that lens, what's a piece of advice that you have to share for other people out there who's also navigating this and want to figure out with clarity?
I think my key takeaway would be so the whole solution perspective is There are times, or there are exceptions to every problem, meaning maybe there is not maybe, there are times when you don't feel stressed or unhappy or annoyed with your kids, right? Or spouse. Let's not forget the spouse or partner, because there are times you're kind of stuck at home. So I'm saying, answer that question. When are those times, or what are those times? Ask yourself. And a lot of people come to me and Shilpi as experts, like, oh, help me. But I will say, you're the number one expert of you, and you can definitely help yourself. So there's things you're already doing at home to cope, at work. You're already doing things to help you. So my takeaway would be, please look at those things. And what are you doing already to help you through this, make yourself feel better, or what you enjoy most about your family? I do always ask that. What do you enjoy most about your family? They're like, no, there's always something. And you can think of it, and then your mindset already shifts on a positive note. So that's my one thing I want to share.
Think about something that you already love, because we all do. Thank you for sharing that. Shilpi, yes.
Since it's Mental Health Month, so I wanted to just add to what Jeani said, but she said, like, look at the times when you are okay, and remember those times. I would tell the listeners, it's okay not to be okay. So there are days when you are not going to be okay. There are days where it's going to be tough. And in those days, you don't have to beat yourself down. You have to be practicing constant self-compassion. I mean, these times are tiring for each one of us. And if we are not compassionate towards ourselves, we will not be able to extend that compassion to anybody around us. And it's going to make it harder, it's just going to make it harder when you don't have that empathy, and you're not in that space where you say, it's okay not to be okay. I'll just leave everyone with two strategies. And that is, one is a strategy of gratitude. Start penning down gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful practice. Get a gratitude journal, or just a simple notebook, and just two things that you're grateful about in your day. That would be great. And the second strategies, which Jeani was doing at the beginning of the show, which was the intentional smile practice. Sometimes those days are really, really hard, and it's so hard even to find your smile. So go in front of the mirror and just practice smiling. Just smile, give yourself a deep, tight hug. And those are those things, if you do on a day-to-day basis, you'll be in a better space. You may still not be okay, but you'll find ways to navigate this space. So navigation and not suppression is the key thing that I would tell the listeners.
I love all of that, which ties perfectly to some of the quotes that I was reading to share for today's conversation, and how coincidentally it ties in. One is about, don't ever think that just because you do things differently, you're wrong. Gail Tsukiyama, one of the Asian Americans, when I was looking up, inspirational quotes that really sit with me. And I think that's important. I think whether you feel that you're right now not okay and still figuring out how to navigate, or that you are okay and trying to remember how to harness that, you start with where you are. And everything that we discuss, it's a spiral. It's never going to just be a sit down and copy paste, let me just get that done, and like, okay, I'm done for life. It's something that we all continue to strive. All three of us are continue to grow and do better at, which I loved hearing those building blocks, which connects to a second quote I want to add is, healing takes time, and asking for help is a courageous step, by Mariska Hargitay. And that's true, because that's why I think, one of the things I speak about is creativity takes a lot of courage, and all of this takes a lot of courage. And we should honor and acknowledge that. So shout out to all the innovators who happen to be Asian American. Both of you, Jeani and Shilpi, for all the amazing work you do to empower many others, and how they find their voice and help yourself be where you are with your self-centeredness. Jeani, was there any final thoughts?
No, I was going to say, asking for help. I love that you said it's a brave, courageous step. So true, especially in our culture. Asking for help. Plus, it builds community. So I just wanted to, just really emphasize that, because I love that.
Thank you. Absolutely. And that's why I asked these two wonderful friends help. I'm like, I want to have these important conversations and I'm not going to do this alone. I need other experts to talk with me. So thank you both for agreeing to be part of this and sharing your gift and presence, as Shilpi said, being fully present, to be sharing your positivity and compassion. And for all of you out there, as you're joining, I'm excited because we're going to continue this in May. We're going to do lots of other things. So Emily, who's joined us virtually, you're going to actually meet Emily and many other innovators. In fact, for one of our new show programs called Innovation Unscripted, which are going to be going live this Wednesday, which I'm super excited. And then we're going to continue these live in-depth talks with some of my other innovators friends on Mondays. So Monday, 2 p.m. join next week. We're going to talk about what it means in entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about that entrepreneurship, mental health, Asian American, and all of that, and being an innovator. And then after that, we're going to talk about public policy, again, on those lens. And then specifically, even this Thursday, we have another guest who is going to talk about on the importance of LinkedIn and how you can utilize, because I know a lot of us are trying to figure that out. So small tips every way. Look out for us on YouTube. Give us those comments and questions you have. But thank you all so much for joining and wishing you a great week and happy May. And we'll be back again. So see you later.